The Minnesota Vikings have finally filled a massive need on their roster. And it's about time, because it has been so long. We have gone through so many players at this position. And I'm sure you're waiting for me to tell you what this massive need is. Like, come on, Minnesota Tim, just tell us the answer. What is the answer? So I can turn this video off. Well, I looked at the history of the Minnesota Vikings at this position, and they have gone through position after position after position after position, trying to find the right player, trying to find the right guy. You know, there's teams in the NFL that have had guys at this position for a long time, 10, 15 years. There's teams that have had guys at this position for their entire career. And then there's the Minnesota Vikings, who only have players at this position for a few years at max. And then we like to get guys from other teams who have a few good years left, but they only have a few good years left. So then they got to find another guy. And the position I'm talking about is the kicking position. According to Alec Lewis of The Athletic, kicker Will Richard, however you say his name, was everything Minnesota hoped he'd be this spring, and then some. John Parker Roma, we can't forget about him. His leg has been showing out as well, but he has not been nearly as consistent as Richard has so far. And let's just look at the Minnesota Vikings kickers, okay? I pulled up a list. 2021 to 2023, we had the very inconsistent Greg Joseph. Before that, we had the inconsistent Dan Bailey. Before that, we had the very inconsistent, that's now a superstar, Daniel Carlson, that the Minnesota Vikings cut after he performed poorly versus the Green Bay Packers. Then we had Kaya Forbath. Remember that guy? We had Blair Walsh, who we thought was going to be a superstar kicker after his rookie year. I can still remember that kick first or second week of the season against the Jacksonville Jaguars that won the game for the Minnesota Vikings. But then he missed a 27-yard kick versus the Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs, and everything went downhill from there. He only had 4 years with Blair Walsh. And then we had the great years of Ryan Longwell, Mr. Consistency, never missed a field goal. But we only had him for 5 years. Before that, we had Paul Ettinger, 2005. Morton Anderson, 2004. Aaron Eiling, 2003 to 2004. I think he missed an extra point. Doug Bryan, 2002. His career lasted all of 6 games. He made 83.3% of his field goals, but somehow managed to make only 71.4% of his extra points. What? And then we had Gary Anderson, 1998 to 2002. So those are the kickers, 11 of them, that the Minnesota Vikings have had since 1998. No consistency at this position. And I don't understand why kickers or why teams get so much crap for drafting a kicker early on in the NFL draft. Kickers are always the leading point getters in the NFL, and they always set records for getting the most points ever. Kickers have such a big impact on the game. Just look at last year's Super Bowl. There were 2 records set by the Chiefs kicker and by the 49ers kicker. First, it was the 49ers kicker, I think, set a record, and then it was the Chiefs kicker that set the record. There's like a 55 and a 58-yard field goal. And then there was a couple, what was I going to say? And then just think about the amount of history kickers have made. Think about Adam Vinatieri from the New England Patriots. All the field goals that he made that cemented Tom Brady's legacy. Especially with the offense the Minnesota Vikings are going to have this season, that you're just going to be begging for points. You cannot have missed opportunities from 47 yards. The Vikings offense, hopefully it's great. Sam Darnold, hopefully he takes that next step. But you cannot miss chances from 50 yards, which is now a cheap shot or a chip shot in the NFL. And every single kicker that's good needs to make a 50-yard field goal consistently. And Greg Joseph is not consistent from that mark. He wasn't consistent for his few years. He had moments. He had game-winning moments. and was very likable. He was a Christian. I love that. But he just wasn't very consistent at the kicking position. And this is a move where the Minnesota Vikings feel the massive need. And this is something that is very exciting. It's a special teams position. It's an overlooked position. But the Minnesota Vikings needed to pull this off, and they did. And it is a great thing. Thank you for watching this episode. Subscribe right here. Rate, follow, review on Apple or Spotify. And thank you for making this podcast a part of your day.